Hello and welcome to the Unbundled Attorney Mastermind Podcast. My name is Dave Aarons and I'm the founder and CEO of Unbundled Attorney. In this podcast, we interview our unbundled attorneys, as well as the leading experts in the industry, to identify the best practices for converting leads into paying clients and how to ethically and profitably deliver unbundled legal services and other affordable options in your practice. To learn more about how our exclusive unbundled leads can help you grow your practice, visit our website at unbundledattorney.com. All right, well, we are really excited today because this is our 50th podcast episode for the Unbundled Attorney Mastermind.
Wow.
And so to mark this special occasion, we thought it would be really a privilege to actually have a sit down with some of the attorneys we work with here, Ms. Bounlutay, founder of Wise Women Law, and Sunny Awla. How do you spell it? How do you pronounce it?
Awla. Kind of like owl with an A.
Awla.
Yes.
Awla, who is an unbundled attorney, Newport Law Group, who's an unbundled attorney, does immigration services throughout the King County and Seattle metro region. And get an opportunity for you to meet them more in person and have an open discussion. Sue's been on our podcast in the past in both roles. Once interviewed as a podcast guest, and then we switched chairs and she interviewed me for the podcast as well. So really pleased to have you joining us back on the show again. So thanks for taking the time. And Sunny, we're looking forward to chatting with you too and hearing about your story and our journey together. So thank you both for being here.
You're welcome. Happy to be here and happy to meet you.
To meet you too.
Yeah.
Yes. And you finally.
Yeah, it's awesome. This is part of what we're most excited about, is just having a chance to sit down and get to know each other and create community and more of a cooperative effort amidst both us, in facilitating you guys as attorneys, but also for you guys to get to know each other and share some ideas. So glad that we can make it happen. So maybe just a good place to start for those that haven't heard your previous podcast episodes, and given that this is the first time for you on the show, maybe you guys could both give a bit of background on how you guys got to start in the practice of law, the focus area, and maybe what makes your firm unique other than your shining selves.
I'll let you.
You want to start off? Go ahead. Why don't you start off, Sue?
Well, I have been doing this for a while, and I started out wanting to be and am a trial lawyer doing litigation work. And then almost a year ago, I branched out and decided to do family law as well. And I also do some immigration. And rebranded completely, redid my practice and renamed it Wise Women Law. And the reason why I decided to do that at that time was I was looking for ways to integrate my practice in a way that would be more consistent to who I am and kind of really put my whole heart and soul out there and just kind of like, here it is. And that's how I came up with Wise Women Law. And the purpose of Wise Women is, my purpose, I think my passion is really to help empower women. And there has been question before, it's like, okay, is that the only people you want to help?
Yes.
Are women? So that has always been an issue. And my answer, of course not. I want to empower everybody. And even whether you're a man or a woman, I think we're also connected. For example, you have sisters, you have wives, you have daughters. So in a way, we're all connected no matter what our gender is. But on a personal level, and you can't deny the fact that me being a woman, I would have more of a personal, that deep connection to what it feels like to be a woman who, and for whatever circumstance, would, come along and feel disempowered. And so I wanted to have my skill and my passion to do what I can to help empower individuals like that.
I've been practicing for the last 10 years. I graduated school in Florida, and I worked with a bunch of different law firms, and I did a lot of volunteer work. And I've been doing that for the last 10 years since I've graduated. And
What kind of volunteer work were you doing?
I volunteer with Northwest Immigration Project. I volunteered with the King County Bar Association and Jacksonville Legal Aid when I was first getting started. And I noticed that there is a big demand for ethnic women and just people who can speak multiple languages in the area of immigration. And it's a very underrepresented group of people. There's a lot of attorneys out there. There's a lot of people who need to. There's a large amount of people who can speak Cantonese, Mandarin, Vietnamese, and Spanish.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of people who speak Punjabi and Hindi. And I am originally Canadian, but I had my own immigration process when I was coming here, and I came here as a student on an F1 visa, and my mom actually has dual citizenship, and waiting as an adult to get approved in order to get my green card to move here, and going through that process on my own really sort of spiked my interest. And I also did a little bit of volunteer work with Amnesty International when I was in law school, and I did international moot court competitions because I was on the moot court team. So I came across a large amount of people who were very underrepresented, and nobody was really listening to their stories, especially when there was asylum seekers, people who were coming in under the VAWA Act, people who would come in good faith, get married, and come here, and they were being treated terribly by their spouses and other family members. And there was really no voice for them. They didn't know who to talk to, they didn't know where to go, and there was nowhere to help. So I actually started a legal clinic with the temple here locally so that people could come in, and it's once a month, and we get in conjunction with the South Asian Bar Association, and for people to be able to come in and actually have a conversation with an attorney to get some legal advice and get some legal help and feel comfortable speaking in their language, which was important. And
you have attorneys that will volunteer and just come in one day a month, and people can come in and get advice and get help with their paperwork.
Yeah, and read it. I mean, sometimes you get a letter from USCIS, and what USCIS does is they'll reject you, and then they will send you 5 additional pages of just law. And people don't know what are you asking for, and then right at the end it says you have 30 days. So they're in a rush, and going in to speak to an attorney is really expensive, especially immigration attorneys, because the thing with immigration law is that if you agree to represent a client, for example, and they have a hearing and you have to go in front of a judge, the immigration judges, for an attorney, for me, for example, I agreed to represent someone. And I charged him, I actually got him through our unbundled services. I charged him a flat rate for that one day of representation. And it turns out the judge says, you have to do all of these steps. And if you don't, you have until March to do all of these steps. That client didn't, after that hearing, I couldn't get a hold of him. I couldn't find him, I couldn't see him, and I couldn't get out of his case because the judge wouldn't let me go. And that's where you kind of get stuck a little bit in immigration, because they won't let you get out of the case as an attorney, especially when it's litigation.
Right. I think that's part of I also do litigation, deportation cases for immigration. And I think that goes to why attorneys who do deportation cases charge so much. Because you're not only taking on the case and representing the client, but in terms of your responsibility and your legal liability as an attorney is so extensive. You're dealing with federal case, federal law. And unlike the civil case where you have in the Superior Court, as an attorney, you don't have a lot of freedom to go in and out of cases. The moment you put your notice of appearance, meaning saying that I'm now the representation for this case in federal court, in immigration federal case, what happens is, in order for you to get out of it, you have to go through such an extensive process. You have to go make sure that you file correctly. You have to ask the judges, permission to do so. And most of the time, judges don't like it when you try to withdraw. So the attorney ends up taking so much responsibility for the case. And especially, in most clients, when they're in deportation, by the time they get there, there's so much crisis in their life that having this pile on them, a lot of times they kind of emotionally detach, or they get into a crisis mode and can't really handle the responsibility of doing what is needed for their case in the first place. So it's, that's why it is so difficult to find immigration attorneys, let alone immigration attorneys that is familiar with your culture, that is familiar with your language. So it's a very difficult situation for everybody to be in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It is hard. And I find that there's a lot of people that appreciate that, that they can speak in their native language. And there's not that many. In Washington here, I think there's now, of course, the community is a lot bigger. And but when I first started in Washington State, it was 2011. And there was really like 3 immigration attorneys that could speak, that had the experience or the inclination to do immigration law, that could actually speak the language properly. And they were so very busy. Yeah. And I would get, when I started out, I would actually get a lot of offshoot of their business, and people would call and they would say, well, that person's very busy and they're just not calling me back, and just said, I'm not going to take your case. Even though when I ended up doing some of those cases, they were easier cases, and they weren't, but some people just don't, some attorneys just don't have the time, and they don't want to do it, and they will just be rude to people. And
do you think it's largely to the degree that they know that if they get involved in those types of cases, it's going to be a really serious investment of time? It's
a long, you have to be willing to take on almost a long term. Yeah, it takes, it's so invested. You have to be so invested in that. And so...
Well, one of the things about family law is, specifically, and as it relates to unbundling, is that it gives attorneys the capacity, and they've had the support from the bar associations and the ethics opinions to make it very clear that attorneys can now handle different just pieces of the case, enter a limited appearance. Like there's a lot of states now, like California, Washington, Colorado, Massachusetts, where they actually have forms that say notice of limited appearance, that outlines the exact scope of what is it they're covering, what they're providing for that attorney, and what they're not as well. And so that gives attorneys a lot of solace in knowing that they're not going to get stuck if, in the event that things become more complicated, or they have the ability to limit the scope, so that it gives them that flexibility of knowing that they can work with folks without having to do the whole thing all at once, right?
Exactly. My experience with family law, and I take on a lot more in terms of unbundle with family law, is that not only do you have the ability to do the limited scope of representation, but it appears that the court understands the concept a lot better, and it's familiar. So the moment, like I've walked into hearings before, where the moment the court or the judge sees as limited, they will specifically even say, oh, counsel, I noticed that you're here for a limited scope. And so it's the amount of understanding of what it means to have a limited representation is not clear. So there's no misunderstanding. And everybody involved, I don't have to always state what the limited scope is, but the fact that it's limited, there is that understanding among all parties, the judge and opposing counsel, that that there is limitations here. With immigration law, I'm not sure that there is such thing as a limited scope representation. And that's where it gets complicated. Where, the moment that you come on, trying to explain to the judge that it's limited, I don't think there's that, I don't know if the law doesn't support it, or the lack of familiar, being familiar with what Unbundled does with immigration. So huge, there's a very distinct distinction of how the court treats attorneys who take on those kind of cases. It is much easier, and there's that free flowing of access with family law.
And other laws, actually. Like I do other civil litigation, and you can do limited scope representation in business law matters and in any type of litigation. A judge is okay with that.
So you are dealing, and I sympathize, because I understand the struggle with that, and it's really a higher, from the attorney's perspective, it is a higher risk. Representation.
And what becomes difficult sometimes is if you've only been practicing state-specific law and you're licensed in your own state, and you have been able to do limited appearances, such as in family law matters, and of course some states are more flexible than others, but when you have been doing that, if you get into immigration without understanding that it's a federal law, and you decide to take on those kind of cases, and if you have a family law person who comes in who needs you on a limited scope or any other law, and you go into King County Superior Court with your limited representation notice of appearance, a judge isn't going to balk at that, and he's going to think that that's okay.
Yeah.
But there is, of course, no such thing in immigration law.
That's right.
And that's a key thing that attorneys need to understand. When you choose to do, and even in bankruptcy, it's the same way. These are federal judges. Federal judges don't like to get their dates changed. Federal judges are very strict and
more inflexible. Yeah, it is very difficult. Even the filing process is different. Unless you do everything to the T, your paperwork gets rejected. You don't even get before the court. And so that has been a source of frustration. But I think, but even that, I think you were mentioning how you try to provide unbundled services, even in the immigration stuff, meaning the doing the form preparation without representing the client. That's more internal, right? That's more internal working of, okay, this is what I'm willing to do. Sometimes you just need the form filled out. My office, I don't even do that because, and the reason why I don't do that is, one, I don't like the feeling that I'm just kind of in a way a rubber stamper, somebody who comes in and just do the work and just fill out the forms. I really like the fact that if I'm going to do this, I want to be accountable. I will represent you because I know from my experience, no matter how carefully I monitor my staff's work or even my own work, there's going to be, I may make a mistake in answering a question. I may make a mistake here and there. And if I'm not on board, then when the mistake is discovered, which they will because you're dealing with so many forms, a lot of times, then I can say, I can provide an explanation and accountability in saying, this is what happened, and we move forward. Or I can, when I double check before the hearing or before the interview, then I can make sure that is remedied.
Yes.
That is fixed. So I don't, but I see the need, I see the need of doing whatever you can at the time for the
Yeah, and
people.
I think USCIS makes allowances for that. That's specifically why they allow you to sign off as a preparer of the documents. So if they do have any further questions, they contact you.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, everybody has, especially with unbundled services, the clients that are online looking for help, they are looking for something within a specific budget. And I feel when they come to me, I want to give them the best amount. And every time somebody comes, I don't do free consultations, but the consultation that they pay me for, it's $100, and they get treated. They know everything when they leave my office. And I think that for me, that's the most important thing. If they don't come back, that's fine because my costs are covered. But they know what their process is, because I have had people come with completely misconstrued information from all the free consultations that they get, and they don't know what they're doing. And now they're in a worse position because they listen to that attorney and that attorney and that attorney. And I think that, I think in life in general, you get what you pay for, And so I definitely give them a full-on explanation of everything that needs to be done. And with immigration, it's a lot easier if it's affirmative immigration. If you're just doing the forms, that's okay. Because
you're not dealing with the courts.
You're not dealing with the courts. But when you are getting into the litigation aspect of it, it is very difficult. And, at the end of the day, you have to protect your own self because you're liable. You're liable for your client's actions when you start doing defensive immigration work. Yeah. But, for the limited scope, I think it's great. I think it's a great way as an attorney to help people and give them that support. Because when people come to me, they are scared. They don't know the court documents. They don't know the court process. They're scared that, everybody that they've gone to is quoting them these crazy amounts, and to be able to come to me and I can prepare forms for them for $1,000. Instead of some other attorney where they had to go pay $3,000 and they just don't have it.
Yes.
You know, being able to offer them a payment plan, that helps a lot of people out. And, you know, I don't want to say, like, maybe it's just altruistic, but I like helping people. And I noticed through a lot of volunteer work that I've done, there are some people that really need attorneys. Like, they need it. They need that help. They need that support system. And they really appreciate actually having someone who comes in and they get value for the dollar that they spend. And I always get, like, anybody who comes in and gives me that consultation, they will still come in and they'll say, hey, can you just read I've done all the paperwork that you told me. Can you just read it for me and I will pay you? So you never lose somebody that way. And as an attorney yourself, if you're charging $100 or $150 for a consultation, what's happening is you're giving them the best advice that you can possibly give. And you're giving them very good quality, because I don't like people to pay me for, just take people's money. If you're paying me, I want to give you a good service, and I want to give you information that's going to be helpful to you and help you in your process, So I think that's really important to understand how you have to limit yourself and what products and services you're selling and what you're helping people with.
Yeah. So it's been interesting to hear kind of a contrast between, how as an unbundled attorney, you're trying to be more creative in the way you're working with people's budget to give the most amount of access to your services so people get help. And obviously, like you're saying, there's a lot of people that are, maybe can't qualify for legal aid or some of the nonprofit support, or maybe it's just not available in their locale or something. But they also can't afford, $3,000 to $5,000 up front. That's a common issue, of course, in family law and in many other areas of law as well. And so there's this gap, this ever-growing gap, which in family law in California courts, it's something like 65% of clients are self-represented, and that's been a big change just in the last 10 to 15 years. So maybe what would be helpful is to, obviously there's certain limitations in immigration that don't exist in family law.
Yeah,
but what you guys are doing is still finding creative ways to work with clients, and like offering document preparation, or some of attorneys have been offering pay-as-you-go. So maybe you guys can share some of the things that you've done to still apply that creative kind of client-centered, solution-based approach to working within people's budget and somehow still getting the help that they need to get through these processes, given some of the constraints in the legislature.
I just want to take a moment to give to clarify in terms of immigration, because we were discussing a lot about the limitation of unbundle in immigration, and I don't want to discourage that, because I think it needs to make a very distinct unbundle service with immigration still works fantastic. The only limit is you have to make the distinction whether it's litigation.
Yes.
Or if it's non-litigation. If it's litigation, meaning that you have to represent them in court for deportation and stuff, that doesn't work as well, simply because
you're tied to the record. Yeah,
I'm tied to the record, and
so you can't limit the scope.
Exactly, you can't really limit it very well. But the majority of the people that come our way, sometimes it's not because they're in deportation; it's because they need help to fill out the forms with USCIS, where they're going through the process of getting a green card, citizenship, and that kind of stuff. Yeah. In that circumstance, it works very well, because then we have room. For example, with Sunny, she can say, you don't need me to fully represent you and go to the interview and kind of guide you through the whole process, but you need somebody to make sure that you can do it right so that you can get going in the process. That's fantastic, and you can limit it. You can say, depending on how extensive the work is, you can say, okay, instead of paying me between $3,000 to $5,000 for the whole process, I can do the preparation for you for $1,200, for $1,500. And when you break it down in little chunks, it's not so financially overwhelming for people. Because normally most people, for them to say, here's $5,000, here's $3,000 at one time, how many months of saving is that for them, right? Most people can't afford that in real life. That's the reality of what we live. Most of us can't afford that. For them to do that, that means a mortgage payment. It means their healthcare is not getting met. I mean, some sort of really necessary things that they need, day-to-day stuff. So under that circumstance, with an exception of litigation, unbundle works very well with immigration as well as family law.
And also, just in addition to that, I've noticed that I don't get too many people who are looking for litigation.
That's right.
Which a lot of people are looking for. I got married, or I'm seeing someone, or I want to bring my cousin, or I want to, so those are the people.
Probably less than 10%, I would think, of the leads that we see.
Yeah, I'd say between 10 and 15%.
Is the litigation side relative to the family petitions and business-related stuff.
And I've had, rarely do I get, like, I have had it, but I've had some people who will call and say, oh, somebody just arrested my boyfriend, that at that point, okay, that's a litigation. Yeah. But more than anything, everybody's just curious. And that's why they go online. Somebody who's looking for a budget, they're like, something needs to be done. I want my husband here or my boyfriend here or whatever. What can I do? Or it's students. And of course, students that are between the ages, or here, who are between the ages of 20 and maybe 30, but generally it's around, 26, 27. Those people are looking for something that's cheap, and what can I do to change my status, or it's J1, au pairs, but most of those people are affirmative. So I do think even with that little bit of litigation, even if you can't take that case on, it's not overwhelming for Unbundled, because what's happening with Unbundled is it's all just regular kind of people who want to actually take that affirmative action instead of the defensive action. So,
well, let's take, because obviously when you have the litigation cases, which as we're saying is kind of more of the minority of the types of leads you guys get, at least with Unbundled Attorney, and I think generally speaking, the vast majority of people that are going through immigration process, I don't know what the statistics are, but they're general petitions, right? Filing for status, filing for citizenship and so forth, especially with the new administration, people that otherwise used to be permanent residents or didn't quite have status, just saying, hey, I might want to secure this a little better and go down the path of citizenship, right? So maybe we can talk about that at some point here before we wrap up. But maybe it'd be helpful just to lay out some of the options within the family petitions of ways either you would provide unbundling or full representation. Maybe give some examples of pay-as-you-go payment plan types of approaches, so that attorneys that maybe haven't explored as many of the creative approaches of working around people's budgets might be able to get some ideas for ways they can start to do that, to be able to continue to help more clients that maybe can't do the full retainer up front, and still be able to serve them, but also still be able to do it properly too.
I love doing Unbundled with family law.
With family law, yeah.
And even with litigation in that aspect. And what I'm discovering with litigation is clients will wait and will try to resolve their family law case on their own, which is totally understandable because it's cost so much. And then they realize, oh no, there is no way I can resolve this on my own, and they maybe have a week. And then they get overwhelmed, they kind of, in a way, disengage and try to, not deal with it. And then they realize they can't run away from it. Litigation's right in front of their face. And they will start panicking, and they will come to me. And
that's where panic sets in, huh?
Panic sets in, and I don't know who's crazier, the client or me, because when they come, I have a week, or I have 3 days, I'm in trial, I have, all these things are not being done. And even under that circumstance, I will say, yep, I can do it, unbundled, even through litigation. What I do then at that point is I look at their situation, and I can kind of guess after a while, after doing this for a while, and say, it's going to take you 3 days for me to try your case. And, I calculate 8 hours a day, and then I just do a flat fee. For me to try your case for this 3 days, here's how much it's going to cost. And most of the time when they're like, okay, I understand, I get it, they'll go with it, they'll figure it out, because they've tried their best to resolve it. They know that it's going to cost them to resolve it, but they tried, they made an attempt, and now there is no other option but to move forward with this.
Sure.
And I actually love it. I actually love having clients coming the week before their case, because then I don't have to spend hours and hours and hours trying to do trial prep. Instead, I just, in a way, kind of, in a way, I love winging it, but
you're doing the best you can with what you got, right?
And most of the time it's still that it's still that way. And I think because of my background, when you're with family law case, it's a bench trial. Yeah. And I've been trained to do jury trial. So the dynamic and the level of stress is not the same. Yeah. For me, it's much more manageable. So I can just walk in the day before, I can walk in the hour before, and I can try your case. because being trained as a trial lawyer in jury trial, it's transferable skills. So I can use my skill to help the client, who, if they did it themselves, have no skill whatsoever to try their case, to deal with the law or even the trial process.
Would that be a notice of limited appearance when you take things on more of a short notice like that?
Yeah, I would have literally an hour before walk into court and give the court. No, I mean sometimes I don't even have the time to do that. I would literally announce, on record saying, my limited appearance is to try the case.
Okay.
And the judge just goes, okay, counsel. And I literally, I have the judge's clerk running around trying to make copies because my client obviously don't know how to prepare their case for trial, and everybody just work with what they have, including the court and the judge. Understandably, and they are so grateful. I mean, at that moment,
that client's still in a better position, even if you're not as prepared as you'd like to be.
Exactly.
If they're on their own, they have a much less chance to try to do it. Yeah.
You can't try your own case.
Yeah.
There is just no way to do it. You need somebody to try your case.
Yeah.
It's either the attorney or you don't get to really try your case, because most of the time the other party that comes on, they have an attorney. And there is no matter how knowledgeable you are and how comfortable you are doing pro se, doing it on your own, there is no way you can advocate yourself for yourself under that circumstance.
Well, I can imagine that a lot of attorneys would look at that and be like, well, I need at least this much time to prepare because they're thinking about all the contingencies and everything they'd want to make sure is perfectly in order and dialed in and fully researched and everything, right? But at the same time, it's like, if I don't do this, then this person can be in a much worse position, right?
Exactly.
So that's the kind of the concept that Forrest Most and I have been talking about a lot, is like, and this is the underlying principle and philosophy of unbundled legal services, is like, and I think the judges agree with this, that client is better off having a little bit of help from an attorney
than no help.
Than no help at all. Exactly.
Well, my position with that is, and you're a trial lawyer, is that you would agree, most attorney will not take on a case an hour before and try it. Okay, I'm one of the few, right? Okay, you have to,
I wouldn't.
Yeah, right? I mean, to have opposing counsel say, I've never done it in my 40 years of practice. I mean, there's a reason why. But my position on, and my position on that is because that issue is really not a client issue. That's really about the attorney. And all the emotional stuff that comes into in trying cases, whether it's not because I can't do a good job for the client, it might be because nobody likes to lose. The risk for that attorney to lose a case when you walk in an hour before, I mean, and there's a fear factor because nobody likes to lose.
Yes.
And I guess I'm one of the few that's like, I don't know, I guess if I'm going to lose, I'm going to lose. Because the fact is, I'd rather have the client, like you said, they are still better off with me on there, no matter what. Even if I fumble through it, even if I have to ask them every other sentence when when their case is put on, do you have this? Do you have that?
Yeah.
It is better, at least with me on there, at least there's somebody there advocating for them.
Yeah.
They have at least a voice and to protect them.
Yeah.
Well, we're taking this, I think this would be probably the most extreme example of limited scope in the sense of like, it's an hour before, are you better off, right? But we can take that and look at it from all facets of providing. Are they better off with just a consultation, with just an hour or two of coaching at any phase in the process?
Yes.
Are they better with having someone just draft some documents for them and make sure they don't make procedural errors just because everything's in legalese and they don't fully understand how to fill it out, once it's filed, what happens, is there a deadline, is there going to be a court date, when I go to court, who's going to talk, like just understanding even the basics. And even if that was all you could provide, that would still put the person in a better position, right? And so it kind of threads through all the different unbundled services you might provide at any different level of the process, from an hour before court all the way back to just helping someone better understand what is going to be the process when they file those documents in the court and what's going to happen next and how to respond, and just giving them the basic understandings that a lot of attorneys just sometimes can easily take for granted just because they're doing it every day, of understanding what to expect.
I think the key thing that I'm hearing from you that is really critical. And I think that, with Sunny and I and why we do this is access.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the people out there do not have access.
Mm-hmm.
And having access to legal help or even just access to the judicial system is a privilege. And what we're saying that is that we recognize that it is a privilege and we want to give it to everybody. It should be a right.
Yeah.
This is the kind of access that when you live in some places like we do in the US, that it shouldn't be given to the few.
Yeah.
And that those who have the ability to give access should do whatever they can to give that, to serve that. This is really the power of accessing a system that for the longest time, unless you have the money and the resource, you can't have access to, and the harm that it has been causing those who lack the access.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's fortunate nowadays is we now have the support of the courts, of the bar associations, especially in family law, and to certain limitations within immigration in some areas of law, but especially family law. I mean, it's one of the most underserved areas of the law right now. The support is there. The ethics opinions are there. And so at this point, it really is just an education, awareness, and understanding of how to deliver these services effectively. And so maybe we can talk a bit about, what are some of the things that you've implemented in your practice to be able to provide unbundled services efficiently? What are some of the things that, for attorneys that are newer to providing these options that say, hey, I became a lawyer because I wanted to help people. Yeah, I want to make some money too. And so how do you do both, right? How do you serve a lot of clients and also build a very profitable practice? Because that's what both of you have accomplished.
It's still business at the end, right?
Yeah, we have hundreds of attorneys
we
that
can be as nice as we want to be, but yeah. I know for me, when I hadn't ever thought about unbundled services until I actually Graham reached out to me. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, this is fine, let's try it. And one of the first things that I did was I came up with my spiel of what I'm going to say to the clients and how much time I'm going to give to them before having them come in. And in the beginning, I was spending 2 hours on the phone with people sometimes because I didn't know how to do this, And it's always a hit or miss. So you will come up with your own strategy of how long you're going to take and invest in that phone call to have them come in, because your time is also money and you have to treat it like a business, If it's costing you X amount of dollars to get a lead and then you're spending an hour of your time, that lead is costing you $150. If you're only charging $100 for a consultation, you're not really making your costs up. So you always have to know exactly how much time something's going to cost you. Mm-hmm. And in fact, unbundled, so for me, I have a boutique firm. So I do a lot of civil litigation. I do bankruptcies. I do wills and estates. I do real estate. I do evictions. And I do, of course, immigration. And what I started doing was I actually made lists of what are the different types of things that people are looking for. So I have, for example, I tell them, if somebody comes to me and let's say they're initiating a divorce, I can tell them all the documents that they're going to need, and I tell them what they need in that consultation. Then if they decide to go forward and want actual representation, I have a list. This is how much it's going to cost to draft your initial documents. This is how much it's going to cost if you want me to represent you in this. And and I think that's key. In any business that you're doing as an attorney, you need to know the basic stuff of what needs to be done and how much time is it going to take me and how can I break off each piece of that.
Yes.
If you want to file for a spouse, you need to file the I-130 and adjustment of status. If you only want me to do the I-130, I will do that for X dollars. If you want me to do the adjustment of status, I could do the I-485, it's going to cost you X. Or I could do the full package, it'll cost you X.
Right.
And same thing with a divorce. If you want me to do just your initial petition and all of the documents associated with that, it's going to cost X. If you have a child and now I need to do a parenting plan, it's X. Some people have come to me with after they filed their divorce and they didn't file any kind of a parenting plan. So now they're fighting over the kids. So all I really need and they need help with someone and the courts rejected everything, and so they need help with a proper parenting plan. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to break down whatever area of law, Like for my evictions for landlords, when they come to me, I charge a flat fee to go put on the 3-day notice. Then I charge a flat fee for an order to show cause, and I charge a flat fee for, and so this way it makes it clear to the client as well, because when the client is looking, they're saying, okay, well, I only need you to do this, and they feel more in control. They feel like this could fit within my budget and it's not so bad.
Yep.
And that client that'll come in usually who's like, oh, I'm only going to do the $500 one. After they pay the $500, they're like, well, I kind of want you to hold my hand a little bit more, and they'll pay you more. And that $500 can add up to $5,000 really quick.
Yeah, but they're also paying you as you're delivering each service, right? So your account receivable is basically zero.
Yeah,
or it should be 100%, right?
Yeah, and it's really nice because generally I find that most people that come to an attorney that are working with a budget, if they feel like they're getting a good value for their dollar, you'll always get paid. But they need to know what they're paying for. And most people don't know what they're paying for. They don't know the law. I can say adjustment of status package, but people aren't going to know what that is, you know? And so once I break it down for them, then they understand the amount of work that goes into it and the value for their dollar, and the fact that they like it. Their people like that because they gain an understanding of what the attorney's actually doing, and they don't feel so bad paying you. And I think that's what it is at the end of the day, is every single thing you should have a sheet. Break it down to the most minute detail. And that I find has really helped me a lot. And that actually came about after when I first started with Unbundled, I started with the family law. And then I think we added on the immigration. And that's what I did that for the family law. I did that for the immigration. Yep. And in other advertising that I do, I still will advertise just a flat rate divorce, and I have a breakdown. Yeah. And that I find is really easy. You give them a cost sheet. I mean, I don't have it on the website, but I have it there for them to take a look at, which is really, I think that helps people out a lot. And I think it's a very practical way for, the guy who works 9 to 5, or the woman who's single mom who's working 9 to 5 and doesn't have time. I also offer evening and weekend appointments too, by the way, because I think that's key as well with people. They need that flexibility. A lot of people can't make it 9 to 5, especially people who are on a budget. They don't want to take that time off of work.
Yes.
Mind you, they'll be like, oh, I have an appointment with a lawyer, and so they'll move their whole schedule around. But at the end of the day, I think it's the easier we make it for them and the clearer we make it for them, the better business it is for us.
Yeah, the lower the initial financial barrier, right?
Like I've had people who have come to me with consultation for a consultation through Unbundled, and they liked the consultation. So, and even though they didn't need me, they've sent me other people. So I make additional consultation fees, and I've had people who have shown up, potential clients who have shown up with that same price list that I give to people.
Right.
And I think that's really helpful. People want that.
Right.
You don't see that. You can't go on an attorney's website and know exactly how much it's going to cost to do something. There's not too many law firms that do that. They just want you to call. And that's where people get or feel like they get ripped off a little bit, I guess.
I think you've raised just a really critical point that I think any attorney that's looking to implement unbundled legal services or offer more creative and flexible solutions needs to take the time to do, which is to actually quantify each specific aspect of a case. What Forrest Motion would talk about, the horizontal plane is like, from point A, here's all the tasks that need to be accomplished. File the petition, prepare the documents, then deal with any responses, right? And then you have the appearance and you have mediation, right? So there's these phases of the process that can all be broken down and then quantified to figure out how much time does it take to do each phase. And then depending on where clients come to you with wherever they're at in the phase, you can also focus specifically on what that next phase is and allow the client to get an opportunity to work with you just for that next segment. And that's really what they're focused on right now. They don't have to come up with the money for the whole rest of the case. They can just deal with this. And then, like you said, so people can afford that, but then also once they handle that and they've had an opportunity to work with you and get a feel for what, the type of services you can provide, and obviously you've developed some rapport there, then a lot of them will come back and obviously retain for the next, or even just say, hey, you know what? I'm realizing maybe I'm a little bit over my head here, and find a way to come up with the rest for the full representation or work out a payment arrangement and so forth. So for attorneys to take the time to quantify what each step in the process is going to take as far as time, and obviously perhaps even charging a flat rate for each phase, right? Because then you can start to build in some efficiencies, right? Some technology in order to streamline it. Maybe that would be a separate topic we could cover if we have time. But if you're doing it as a flat rate, you can obviously build a little bit more effective hourly rate in there, like a higher effective hourly rate by having staff and so forth. But just being able to look at things one phase at a time so that people can afford it and it's accessible. That's something that really attorneys need to take the time to do.
Well, the problem with flat rate is sometimes what happens with flat rate is you'll end up making $10 an hour. You know what I mean? Sometimes with flat rate, you will walk away and you will make a good amount. You'll make your fee.
Yeah, or even
Sometimes
more, right?
It does. So that is the little bit where that shies some attorneys away. But at the end of the day, you are helping somebody out. And if they have a little bit more paperwork, it shouldn't be something that's so overwhelming for you as an attorney, because if you're doing your job right, you'll be able to do what needs to be done in order to service that client properly.
Yes.
And I think it's very key to know what your skill set is, what you are doing. Don't say that I'm an immigration attorney and I do affirmative petitions and then you don't know the difference between, or you have to keep up with the law. You need to know what needs to be filed and what the deadlines are. So that's the key thing, is you need to know exactly what the process is so you can have a conversation with somebody and explain to them how to go through their divorce, or how to set up probate, or how to draft a will. Like all of these things, it's very key for you as an attorney to know what you're practicing. Right. It's not something for the faint-hearted if you're going to take trials 3 days before the date. But you can't. You're special. It's hard.
I heard that before.
That's amazing. I respect that a lot. That's hard. Yeah,
I am special.
We don't. That's a very specific. That's rare. That doesn't happen. People generally who are looking and go through unbundled services are people who are working with a limited budget and who don't really know what to do.
Yes.
And your job is to give it to them in a reasonable manner, and you need to know what to do and how much time it's going to cost you and how much money you want to make off of it. So It's very important to have a breakdown, even if it's for your own personal self where you're not giving that information to the client. You need to know yourself how much time you're willing to invest in something and how much you're going to charge people, because otherwise, we're all running a business,
Yes.
and that's important.
Well, I'm special.
I'm glad that we've established that.
so I do it kind of a little differently.
Sure.
Maybe not so different, but my experience in dealing with unbundled clients have been more what I've discovered. It's not so much about the money, but it's about establishing this beyond the surface trust with your attorney. Most clients who come in, they realize, because they know what it's like to be in real life, like that there is a cost to everything. Mm-hmm. The issue they have, I think, it's not so much the paying you what you're worth, but it's the ability to trust you enough that you're going to do it, that you're not out there, and that you're not the general perception or stereotype of an attorney who's going to basically, just take their money and not really care for them. Mm-hmm. What I've discovered is the moment that you connect with the client and really tell them what the truth is about their case, or just be real with them, mm-hmm. then I can literally tell them, at the end of the day, this is how much it's going to cost you. And we can help, or I can help. I understand how hard it is, and I can help you by breaking it down. And it usually 90% of the time it works. Mm. So I don't think, for me, with my experience, I don't think it's so much the money issue as whether it is, if I give you this much because I work so hard for my money, how do I trust that you really are going to care for me? Yeah. How do I trust that I'm not just going to be a number mm-hmm. to you? That whether I win or lose, or the consequence of me losing this, this hearing or that hearing, really has no significance for you. That I'm just a customer, somebody that you are here, that I'm here to support your lifestyle. Yeah. The moment that you take that away, then you can have a real deep conversation and say, you know what, for me to do this and to get the outcome that I know I can for you, here's how much it's going to cost us. Yeah. Here's how much it's going to cost you. Then somehow they are going to be honest with me and say, you know what, I have this much to spend. And to make it work, I can get a family support. I can get, third party to support me. What they really want is, I just need to know that you're really behind me, that you're not going to be like the second attorney that I spoke with a while ago, that took on my case, and I felt completely abandoned. That somehow through this process, once again, rather than feeling empowered by this process, I just feel like I got taken advantage of. I need to know that you're one of the few exceptions, that you're not going to take advantage of me, because I'm in a position where I have no power, and the only person I can rely on you is you right now. How do I know that I can trust you?
Yeah.
So I think that's why, and when I take those cases to trial, the one that, it's not cheap. Because that's 3-4 days solid out of my days.
Yeah.
To do those kind of cases, I do ask for, right up front, I need from you $7,000 to $10,000.
Because there's no time for
I
you
have
to
no time.
be flexible around that.
Yeah, and I explain to them, my general hourly rate is, and here's how much each day without any prep time that I'm going to be in court for your case.
Yeah.
So I think there's that psychological connectiveness that they know people are so emotionally intelligent. They know when you connect with them and are telling them the truth. And they know what's more, they know if you truly love them, that you're going to help love them through this process and this crisis that they found themselves in. So I think once we get through that, then we can talk about the practical matter. And I can be honest, and I said this to the client, and I say, for me to do this work, I know it's going to sound like a lot of money, but what I need to know that I need to be taken care of as well. And for me to do a good job and to feel like I'm also taken care of, this is how much I need from you in terms of cost-wise. And I think generally we connect and we get it. And I'm also, so for me, I wish I could be more practical. I think, I'm learning so much from you of being practical. But in terms of
that's why I don't do too much family law. It's too much connection required.
Yeah. So that's how I've been able to do it. But of course, I also keep in mind, I know I've been doing this long enough to know how much, in reality, how much is gonna, in terms of time-wise. So I gauge that, but I don't break it down to that as specific as she does. But I think sometimes it would help. Maybe I should integrate that more.
I find with Unbundled it helps, and of course my Unbundled, I just use immigration, and a lot of the people that come to me are landlords and things like that. So I have found that it has really helped me out because I like the limited scope representation. I think it's a great way to have your legal practice without having the stresses. Because to me, going to trial and preparing for trial in 3 days is highly stressful. And I think it's highly stressful for a lot of attorneys.
Yeah.
This is a skill set that you have, and that's great that, our state allows that limited representation. But in general, most people aren't litigators. Litigators are generally more expensive anyways. And for me, I always, I just like the practicality of it because, when you're dealing with businessmen and you're dealing in immigration, people want to know the bottom line. You want to know the numbers.
It's the bottom line, right?
And as an attorney, and I think a lot of people, and I've heard this complaint a lot of times with attorneys, you hire an attorney, you pay them the $5,000 or the $10,000 retainer, and then you get a bill in a month. And the bill is for every single phone call that you've made. I like flat rate service. I like that because what happens is when somebody pays me, and especially in my litigation work that I do charge for every phone call because even if I charge you 15 minutes, but I was only on the phone with opposing counsel for 5, I also had to open up your file and get familiar with everything and check my emails and make sure everything is right and I don't say anything wrong and reveal. So it takes a lot of time in order to do that. So litigation in and of itself is very expensive. But when it's people who come to me through Unbundled are really just regular people who don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't get too much immigration litigation. I get, like I said, 10 to 15%. Mostly it's people saying, I don't know what to do. And how much is it going to cost me? How much are you going to charge me? How do I, and even, when I'm when I'm looking for certain things online, I want to know how much it is. You know, when I'm ordering something on Amazon, I'm checking to see what am I going to get on my Prime membership and how quickly am I going to get it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think all of us sort of operate that way. We go out there and we try to find what works within our budget. And I also think that people who come to me through Unbundled are not very experienced legally themselves.
Sure.
They haven't dealt with attorneys before.
No.
They don't know the legal system. So what they're looking for is that little bit of guidance, which I feel $100 for a consultation with an attorney is very reasonable, and it really helps them out.
Yeah.
Because then they realize either I can't do anything or I can do something. This is what I can do, and here's how much it's going to cost me. And that's people. As soon as I call, so many people I call back, and the first thing they want to know is how much is it going to cost me for X? And I have found that it's best to, and when they ask me that, my main thing, and that's one thing, is just calling your leads back and talking to them. You will find a lot of these leads they want to know right away, how much is it going to cost me? How can I fix it? And you can't give legal advice that way. Legal advice is, and so I always say to them, what I do is I listen to what they have to say, and I, of course, check my lead and make sure what details are included in that lead. I will listen to what they have to say, and I say, look, I recommend come in for a consultation. Let me take a look at everything so I can properly advise you instead of just saying something off the cuff. Yep. Because I don't want you to take action on my words, and you are in a worse position. Yep. So come in. Spend that money and actually learn what you need to learn about your case. And there was months when I first started where my business was just doing consultations, and that's all I was doing, with Unbundled. And at 1 month, I actually had 100% people who came in for a consultation. I may not have been retained by all those 100%, but they came in to learn how to resolve their situation. And I think that that's really key. They want to know how much and what's going on and what can I do, or can I do something?
Well, I think we're addressing, the underlying, thrust of what you were getting at is that people have natural inhibition about meeting with an attorney. There is an inherent distrust, or at least lack of understanding, that puts them in a vulnerable position, especially when they're handing over the reins to someone else to help them with something that's so important to them, whether it be their rights to their children or their ability to become residents in this country. And there's inherently a lot of control that you're giving up in order to make that happen. And so, by your means of communication and instilling that and coming from that space in the heart, and by your means of making it very simple for them to take a first step and get an opportunity to work with you and sit down with you without, a very big financial barrier. And then even just to get started, where they only have to, commit to one phase of it, on the horizontal. It gives them an opportunity to get to know you, right? And to get more comfortable knowing that you're on their side, and give an opportunity to work with them and communicate with them. We had Anthony Sanders on the podcast a few episodes ago. I think the episode was called the Try It Before You Buy Enrollment Strategy. And what he talked about is he basically refuses to enroll anyone into his services for full representation right away. He won't take the full retainer right up front. He will only start with the unbundled services first. And he says, try out my services. Get to know who I am. Get to know how we can help you. And then once you've had an opportunity to experience the work we can do for you, then you can make an informed decision as to whether you want to continue moving forward. And I think it's the same philosophy in your approach and your communication, and your option is giving people the opportunity to feel comfortable and know that you can help them without having to make such a huge decision, because it's already so much is on the line just with their case, that having to make a huge decision financially just makes it so much harder for people to do that. A lot of people just can't. But once they know that you're on their side and you've got their back and that you're an advocate for them, people are pretty resourceful. They can find the resources they need. They can get the support they need when they know they've got someone that's behind them that can help them.
No, I love that concept. I love the concept of try it out, try me out first, then invest in me.
Sure.
And I think that idea is a fantastic idea, because also it's just not them trying you out. It's also them. It's also you
trying them out. Yeah.
Me, trying to figure out, because the key of doing a good job for me, because I don't want to just, this work that I do is just not work. It's just not something that I do just to get done. I feel like for me, I want to do something with it more. I want to make it purposeful.
Yeah.
I want to be impactful. And I recognize that with my personality and my skill, I'm not gonna fit everybody. And so the key for me to doing this long term, and for my happiness as well as for those I serve, is to make sure that we're a match.
Yeah. And that's an alignment of your brand, right? That's really what you're grounding in, is like, hey,
Yes.
this is who I'm standing for, and getting clear on that for yourself and
Right.
also for your clients, and finding that match.
And that's why Unbundled Service, we were giving, in this conversation, is like 2 different style.
Sure.
And it works for you.
The same underlying philosophy and same
Exactly.
underlying purpose. Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing that I really, appreciate and recognize how fantastic Unbundled Service is, that no matter where you're coming from as an attorney, no matter what paradigm that you're working with, whether it's more of the old school, give me the retainer because you've been working or interning with a bigger law firm, that's how you're taught. What Unbundled Service allows us to do is to kind of try things out in a way, at a pace that's more true to us. She's comfortable with more practical, and her clients are going to want to have her and need her to be like that, because that's what makes sense to them.
Yes.
I, on the other hand, have a completely different approach, but those clients that come to me are going to need me to be that way.
Yes.
So the flexibility, however this work, is wonderful. And Unbundled Service is a different paradigm shift. It's a different paradigm of way of practicing that is not familiar, and it may be uncomfortable because it's a new paradigm.
Yeah.
And anytime you do something different before it becomes comfortable, it has to be so freakingly uncomfortable first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, in the past, it's really comfortable when you're working for the law firm, when everything is established, and as an attorney, all you do, the role that you take is do the job. You do the legal work. The firm has established all the foundation that you need, the marketing, bringing on the clients, the billing, whatever is already established. All you have to do as an attorney is be an attorney. The role when you're a sole practitioner or you're a small business owner is you no longer can afford to work in that paradigm. You have to take on the role of everything and everything. But in order for you to survive, you have to do it and come from the space that's honest to you. Otherwise, it won't work. And Unbundled Service gives you the ability to try out something completely different.
Yeah.
And it's not one of those where it's so earth-shaking that it's if you do it wrong or if you can't figure it out, it's going to create a crisis.
Yeah.
There's so much flexibility to how to do this. There's so many ways and so many models. The creativity. The moment you become real and true, the space to be creative is boundless.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. Sunny has been able to figure out and say, oh, this is what I want to do.
It makes it fun. I think it's fun.
Because you're experimenting, right?
Yeah.
Because you're experimenting, you're learning, you're creating.
Yeah, you're
creating.
Definitely. Creativity. And it's not as stressful. Like the job of an attorney is highly, highly stressful. And I'm sure the level of stress that you experience if you take a trial on at the last minute compared to being there from the inception all the way to the end of trial, it's a completely different level of stress. The amount of stress that you get when you're fully responsible for every single detail, not only does your liability increase, but your stress level is high. You're thinking about that case all the time. And the typical training in an attorney is you start from A and you're taking it all the way to Z. I mean, Z.
You meant
That's
Zen.
the Canadian influence snuck in the back door there. Okay?
But you have to do all of these things. And when you only have to come in when you're at the Y and then you're right at the Z, that's okay. Or if you only have to do the B, that's okay.
That's right.
And the stress level, and this is the thing with a lot of bar associations offer programs for attorneys because attorneys are notoriously known for having a lot of issues in terms of alcoholism and addiction issues and problems with their families. And it comes from that degree of stress.
Yeah.
In order to alleviate that, this is one way that you can do that. You offer limited scope representation and your liability decreases, the stress decreases, because once you're done with the hearing and you file your motion for summary judgment and you argue it, you're done. The motion for summary judgment takes you maybe a month to write up. You get your date, you file it, 30 days later you argue it, and you're done.
Yes.
And that's only a 60-day worth of stress on a trial level instead of an entire year, which is how long it takes generally from the inception until the end of a lawsuit. So that's one thing that is really helpful. And many attorneys are trained in a completely different manner. So when somebody is more, let's say, old school, and they've been practicing for about 20, 25 years, they don't know how to get out of that mentality. And this is a perfect way to get out of it, is do the limited scope representation, your liability decreases, your stress decreases, and I, of course, do it more on a practical level. Because for me, I think, depending on, I'm not going to connect with somebody who I'm just going to go represent for 1 minute. And because what's going to happen, and I know if I take your approach, what's going to happen is not only is it going to stress me out, but I actually have people who will constantly call me after that, because not at that point they're depending on you, and they want to ask your advice and they value your opinion. But what ends up happening is you're thinking about their case all the time. If they're calling you and you just give them, like I said, an off-the-cuff remark on the phone and say, well, no, you shouldn't do that, and they act on that, now they trust you, and you're that person to them that's the authority on that subject. So that it makes it really hard to disengage once they do that. And then you have to say, look, I need you to come in and I need you to pay me more and actually properly hire me and sign a retainer agreement to that effect. But so generally, I just find that people are, for me as an attorney myself, there's just not a lot of stress involved.
Yeah.
I could do 10 consultations, and not 10, but I do 5 consultations in a day. That's maybe 5 hours of my day. I've made some money. I've hopefully signed a retainer, but the rest of the people aren't going to affect me psychologically, in terms of what I'm going to do for the rest of my day. And I like that aspect of it. I like the not too stressful, you know.
This is one of the joys of this podcast is that we now have 50 episodes with 50 different attorneys, all having their unique approach to the same challenge of, like, how do we impact the accessibility of legal services? How do we make it more affordable? How do we give people confidence in their willingness to move forward and know that they have someone that's behind them, right? And so they're really, there's specific guidelines that every attorney has to follow when it comes to unbundled services. Yeah, you have to be expressive about the scope of the services you're providing, right? You have to also be clear, when that needs to modify or change in each step of the process. So there's certain guidelines, but there's so many different ways to do it. It can be in person, it can be hour by hour, it can be one flat rate. Some attorneys take, are kind of, self-proclaimed horse and buggy type of approach, where it's just, written documents, writing it down. Others have streamlined, automated technological systems in place, all in the cloud with, the latest, legal practice technology that streamlines the whole process. It's all electronic, click from the button, right? But at the same time, everyone's approaching it from whatever makes the most sense for them and is the way in which they want to interface with their clients. And at the end of the day, we're all accomplishing the same goal, which is, getting more people legal services in this country that otherwise would be unable to afford or access it without it.
As Sunny was speaking, what came to my mind was, our focus has been, in terms of providing unbundled service, is to provide basically an individualized need for the client. And then it just dawned on me, you know what? Anytime you give, it's really not just about the person you're giving to, it's also about us. And it just dawned on me that what unbundled service does for the attorney, and instead of unbundled, maybe it should be thought of as individualized practice. It allows the attorney to really fit and work the case that is specifically tailored to them at whatever capacity that they want to get involved in.
Sure.
But it's also very uncomfortable, because not everybody, it doesn't have that predictability of, I'm going to sign you up from A and then I'm going to be in charge A, B, C, D. So it requires a different types of personality and a different shift of thinking as an attorney to be opened, to be creative, and to, in a way, to kind of go with the flow a little bit and not have that sense of control. I'm going to control the outcome. I'm going to, control point A to point B.
And this is how it has to be.
Yes.
As soon as you fossilize your options,
that's right.
Like it's like you become rigid, and you
break.
Yeah.
So what this allows is this is an opportunity for the attorney to practice in an individualized manner.
Yeah.
Not just for the client, but also for the attorney. I mean, how great is that? Because, most of us go into this profession because we want to have the freedom and we have to have the power to maneuver and control our own life.
Well, I wanted to change the world.
And change the world in the process, right? And change the world in the process, right?
Yeah.
And then you realize, excuse me, I want to say shit, but, we're going to be
That's all, Sonny? I mean, you really got to step up your commitments here.
Come on, right? And then all of a sudden you feel like, oh no, I'm actually trapped in how to do this, because there's not that freedom. There's not as much as freedom.
You get stuck.
You get stuck.
And you get stuck with all the mentality of everybody who has come before you and all the people who are training you and what you thought your profession was going to be. And as a small business owner and or a solo practitioner,
or minority,
or a minority,
we have so many layers of
the issue then becomes is how do you get that business? I know for me when I started my own practice, I thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to get the business? And, it was nice to be out volunteering. But, when you're volunteering for King County Bar Association or Northwest Justice Project, you don't get the client.
I mean, it's having the security as an attorney. You can only have freedom and flexibility if you have consistency.
Yeah.
And predictability, right? You have to have some sort in your practice or in your professional life. In order for you to have the freedom to be creative, you have to have that foundation of stability.
Yeah.
And to know that the leads are coming, that they're going to be there.
Yeah.
There's that sense of stability and comfort,
they're good
security.
leads.
And
they're
security.
warm leads. Like people are expecting your phone call. They're happy that you're calling.
That makes a huge difference.
It makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference knowing that there's somebody behind the scene that is bringing you the leads so that you can have the freedom to do what you need to do, whether you're going to take on that case knowing that, oh, you know what, I'm not going to make much money, but there's a higher goal. I want to take this case on because I want to impact, right?
This is from a standpoint of abundance.
Yes.
Of knowing that your bases are covered, and it gives you the ability to not make decisions from a standpoint of scarcity.
Because, I can tell, doing litigation and doing hourly rate, the majority of the time, if I really look at it, my flat rate, because I keep track of all the time, like you said, every time I open a file, I keep track, the client is getting such a good deal. I can, almost 50%, if not higher than the time, most of the time, I'm giving maybe $1,500 worth in terms of flat fee, but I'm giving the client $5,000 worth of work.
Sure.
But it's more fulfilling.
But it's fulfilled because it's my choice.
It's your choice,
right.
It's my choice because we have an agreement, we have a trust. Because my basic needs are met. And I know the clients are coming. I know the leads are coming.
Well, in other cases, you're making a lot of money, and so it gives you the bandwidth. Yeah.
The bandwidth, or whatever, the ability to live a life of abundance. So when I give unconditionally.
Sure.
And if the client wants to really see what they're worth in terms of the case that I'm providing for them, I can give them the billing statement, and they will see right on there the worth and the product and how much time and effort and heart I'm putting into their case, so that they can save some money, so that they can have some access. I'm giving them between between $5,000 to $7,000 of service, and they're paying me $1,500. It's a win-win for everybody. I get my needs met, and I get also the higher needs of I want to serve. And they get access and the knowledge, because they can see it, that somebody's doing this, not just because of profit, but because there's heart involved.
Yes.
It's a beautiful, it's a beginning of a creating of a beautiful world for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
See, you are making a difference. You just
Well,
you're just better at being practical about it.
I guess so. Yeah. No, I enjoy it, but I definitely for me, I think it was a lifesaver because I didn't have the connections in Washington State. So opening up a practice is a little bit scary, and to be able to know that there are people who or that these leads are coming and they're legitimate, valid leads, not just, and I tried other companies before and during, and
It's just game playing.
yeah, it really is. And people aren't interested. Those leads weren't really proper warm leads. Like, these are actually warm leads with people who have legitimate either immigration or family law issues, and they want a call from a lawyer. And I think that's the key thing is that they're expecting you. And I don't know I haven't ever tried to get myself a lead on. I thought one day I'm going to try to do that just to see, but I don't know what the process is they go through or what questions they answer. But however they're vetted, they're legitimate, and I appreciate that. You know,
Well,
it's
there's
worth
trust,
it.
right? I mean, between us and, you know, because in terms of my interaction with Unbundled, it's mainly you and Graham, right? There's that trust, right?
Yeah.
I have that trust with you, so I can free my space and my time to do what I need to do, which is to decide not all the leads that come my way are the right leads for me. You know, to decide how I'm going to best serve it. And I think there has to be trust with everybody, where maybe in other service, the moment you don't have that trust, then if there's a problem, there's no way to communicate it. Like, if something is off, you know, if I get a lead that's off, then I can just call you and say, I don't know what's going on. You know, did you tweak something because something, you know, we can have that honest conversation of what's working and what's not working. And I think the unbundled service is different in that way. It's because I can directly communicate if something doesn't feel quite in sync. I can communicate. I mean, I have your personal text. You know, I mean, your personal phone number where I can text you. You have my cell phone where you can text me.
I just feel bad that I don't call you guys enough. Sorry.
Yeah, you know. And so to have that kind of relationship, for me as an attorney, is knowing that while I'm doing my job, somebody else is also taking care of me, so that I can continue doing what I need to do. And to have that, I think, and you will agree, that's a phenomenal gift. That's a phenomenal gift, because for people like you and me, where, you know, we're minority, we're women, we're sole practitioner or a very small firm, we don't have that well-established way to get clients, to have our service known, to let other people know that I'm here. And you know what means the world to me is to have the ability to help you. We don't have that ability. And to know that I know there's tons of you that are behind the scene, you know, to have that, knowing that while I'm taking care of other people, there are other people trying to take care of me. And I can trust in that. I think that's phenomenal. I think that's a great, great way to be.
Yay, Graham and Dave.
Right? Don't you agree? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
you know.
Now I see how you can do trials that quick.
Oh, no! What do you
She
mean?
brings it.
You're a very eloquent speaker.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, very
Thank
good.
you. Well, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, I mean, either that, you know, there's a fine line between crazy and a genius, right? But yeah, no, so thank you. Thank you, because I'm going to take on some of your ideas and be more practical.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to take on any last minute trials. I'll just send those over to you.
Yeah, this is such a cooperative way. Yeah. Well, and I can say it's, it's a real privilege, and it feels really, really great to know that the work we've put in to build this platform, and the decade of years we put in to learn, the strategies we've learned to, educate consumers and bring in the clients and so forth, is creating the space for you to serve these clients from a more authentic space, and to be in your own creativity, and to maybe rehydrate your initial like seed of wanting to serve and wanting to change the world and have an impact on access to justice and do something much greater. And so it's a real privilege to work with attorneys like yourselves that are on the cutting edge and are willing and wanting to bring yourself so fully to what it is you're doing. And it's just been a lot of fun to support all of you in your growth and all the phases that have gone into this relationship and the different ways.
Calls. You call him, instead he calls me. He's like, "What's happening with her?"
We've gotten them all, the ups and downs, the ins and outs, but at the end of the day, we're all doing this for the same reason. And so I commend all the work that you guys do every single day for every single one of these clients. And, we're going to continue to do what we do every single day to educate the clients on the front end and get them more aware of unbundled services, that this can be a way for them to get the help that they so desperately need. And just there's a lack of awareness out there that attorneys such as yourselves that have these principles are available. So thank you again for everything you guys are doing. And as far as this podcast goes, this is our first video podcast, and I think it's been a real pleasure to have these in-person, joyous, energetic discussions, and I think we're really getting at the thread of what this is really all about. Yeah. And to me, that's really exciting. And so we're going to have more interviews just like this, meeting attorneys like you guys and having round twos and maybe broader discussions as well, and building a community around these same goals, because I think once attorneys get to understand what this is really about, and that it's not second rate, or it's not low cost, cheap legal lawyering, and that it's a movement. It's attorneys that really want to make a difference. They're doing it profitably. They're building practices. They're getting more in touch with that desire to serve. That it'll become a lot more commonplace and self-evident that providing unbundled legal services in your practice is just a necessary way to practice in today's times.
No, I'm excited because through this whole process, whatever it is that you're doing, because I feel like just when I think I've kind of reached a level of understanding of what Unbundle is doing, then you come and share with me a whole different vision that's bigger. And so for me, it's like, I'm like, but yet I know I think I'm in sync with you, but the vision that you have is so much greater than what I could ever imagine. And so for me, wanting to see what comes of it is phenomenal. It just, I'm excited to hear that, because I know from this broadcast alone, as attorneys sitting over here doing the work that we do, and especially providing unbundled services, is that the learning process, technically people look at attorneys as the one that has the knowledge, but we are also learning in this process. And so I know that from whatever the conversation, the 50, the 100 attorneys that you're talking to, I know that you're keeping track. And I know you're taking notes of like, where can we serve them better? How can we make them even better? So I just can see it. I can see it in your eyes. I can see in your listening that you are actively listening. And so I'm eager to learn and to see what comes of it, because I know at the end of the day, you are about service and giving, teaching and giving me as an attorney an opportunity to grow, not just as an attorney, but, as a human being. So it's just exciting. If it's a movement, I like the word movement. So.
It's a paradigm shift.
You like
that one. New paradigm in law.
You can take that one.
I will use that word today then.
Yeah, it's exciting. I can't wait.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that you've been, stepping into the space at each new level in vulnerable ways and doing I think we're all stepping into like a greater commitment to what it is we're doing, at each step of the process, experimenting, trying things out. That's working. Okay. What if we did that? What if we tried this? What if we worked together? What if we shared ideas? There's just, all these new levels that we're, breaching, and this is just one of them here with this interview. So thank you both for being willing to join us and talk so openly about the ways in which you guys have been implementing these service options and finding ways to implement to help more people and do it in front of video cameras and lights, all this stuff, and in the legal industry is somewhat of an unprecedented way. So and that takes a certain degree of courage, and I commend you for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to everyone else that's participating and listening into the podcast, we really appreciate the fact that you're applying these strategies in your practices. Giving us feedback, comments. It's been 50 great episodes. And we're really excited about all about the impact that it's having and the ways in which you're implementing these practices into your law firms as well. And we're really excited for the next 50 episodes and doing a lot more video podcasts just like this one. So for now, tune into the new YouTube channel, unbundledattorney.com. The YouTube channel, Unbundled Attorney. The links will be in the podcast show notes to link you right to the videos, to our Facebook page, and where else you can connect to us online. And until next time, we'll see you all on the next episode. Thanks so much. more information about how our exclusive Unbundled leads can help you grow your practice, visit our website at unbundledattorney.com. You can watch each new episode of the podcast on the Unbundled Attorney YouTube channel, or if you prefer to listen, you can find us on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. And be sure to subscribe so you get each new episode as soon as it's available. And remember to leave us your review on iTunes. We read each and every one of them and really appreciate your support of the show. Once again, thanks for listening.